My name is Todd Yuzuriha, and on behalf of the Minidoka Swing Band, we're just thrilled to be part of this extended weekend. We played Thursday night at the dance. Were any of you there at the dance?
All right. Pearl Harbor gets bombed in December of 1941. December 1941. February 1942, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt issues Executive Order 9066, which gives the military the authority to designate areas, just unilaterally designate areas of the United States as sensitive areas from which they can exclude anybody they wish. Now, this was a very broad and general executive order, and it turned out to give the military commander of the West Coast these broad powers to exclude and incarcerate all of the Japanese that lived in what he defined as a sensitive military area. This is the area, the entire state of California, the southern third of Arizona, and roughly the western halves of Washington and Oregon.
Greetings. My name is Larry. Good morning. I was born, first of all, I was the former director of the Minidoka Swing Band since we started in October 2007. I'd like to share my family story, the history of being interned in Jerome, Arkansas. But first I'd like to talk about my dad. My dad was a businessman. He owned a grocery store at 19. I got a picture of him over here. And he got married to my mother later on and had my brother George, a couple years younger than me, before this internment happened. So my mom was pregnant with me in the Bay Area. We were in Oakland, California. And as a result, we were interned. My dad was worried about, because of the districting in Oakland, we would have a better chance of not being interned if we moved to Sacramento, to Florida, California. So that's where we moved, and I was born in Sacramento as a result. Now, my dad had to leave his business, sell everything, and by the time we moved everything was in different places for home storage, grocery store stuff, and it was just a mess, a bloody mess. It's very difficult to put everything in 2 suitcases and bring your family down to a holding place in Fresno, California.
It's nice to see you here, and it was so nice to watch you dance to our music last Thursday. I didn't know that young people dance to our music. We still consider it our music. I am 83 years old. Both of my parents were born in the United States. My dad, Japanese American, was born September 6, 1913 in Salem, Oregon. My mother was a Chinese American and born August 7, 1950 in Beaverton. I was born in 1938 and my brother in May of 1941. My dad's parents came to the United States in the early 1900s. Soon after Executive Order 9066 was signed, a notice was sent out mandating that all persons of Japanese descent living on the West Coast had to report to the Portland Assembly Center. That was the new name of the Portland International Livestock Exposition Pavilion. We had to be documented for our subsequent removal and incarceration in what they call relocation centers. Sometime in September 1942, we were shipped off by train to our new homes. Everyone was extremely anxious to know where we were going. But the authorities refused to tell us. They didn't want the information leaked to the enemy. It was very dark inside the train, and the armed guards would not let us raise the blinds, as they didn't want us to see where we were going either. Our destination was the Minidoka Relocation Center, a city that held about 9,000 souls, but it was surrounded by barbed wire and several lookout towers, all guarded by armed soldiers. After taking away our freedom, our privacy, our assets, our possessions, they also took away our privacy. Privacy was non-existent in those incarceration camps. Also on each block were lavatory and showering facilities for male and female, but the lavatories and showers had no stalls or doors. We were shocked. I remember the flies. The flies were absolutely atrocious. There were lots and lots of flies, especially in the mess halls and the latrines. Many of the young men wanted to prove their allegiance and loyalty to the United States. They wanted to enlist in the armed forces, but they were classified as enemy aliens and not allowed to do so. Finally, in March of 1943, the 442 Regimental Combat Team of the U.S. Army's 100th Infantry Battalion was formed, and roughly 14,000 Japanese American soldiers served until Germany surrendered in May of 1945. The 442nd was also known as the Purple Heart Battalion. The U.S. military awarded 9,486 of them Purple Hearts, 21 Medals of Honor, 29 Distinguished Service Crosses, and 560 Silver Stars, 4,000 Bronze Stars, and 7 Presidential Unit citations. The unit is the most decorated in the U.S. military history for the size and length of service. Finally, the war was over. And there was great relief among all of us. And finally, we were allowed to go back to our homes, most of which were not available to us any longer. But we are a strong people. We worked hard, we persevered, and we came through it. And we like to say, we hope that all of you would do your best to see that things like this never happen again. Thank you.
I never heard very much about what happened to my parents in internment. Like Larry, and I didn't realize this, they were stuck in Fresno. And so they were forced to stay in what is considered the fairgrounds. And so, you know, my parents may have even known me, but they're long gone now. So my mom didn't say anything until the last of her life. And she talked to my sister, which is 15 years apart. So she blabbed a lot, and my sister can talk very much. And so I just got a few things. My mom was born here in the U.S., but then her dad died the day after she was born. And so she got shipped back to Japan because her mom didn't want necessarily be a single mother with 5 kids here in the U.S. But she was close enough that when the bomb went off, she was teaching 30 to 40 kids in school, and they felt it. But back then, the teachers would all gather in the principal's office to hear what's going on. And my sister asked her, well, with 30 or 40 kids, what did they do? And she said they were very discipline not to go anywhere if the teacher is in the room. I try that these days, and maybe scatter through the four winds. And so they went in, heard about the awful atomic bomb. Poston now has a population of 285. And so this was far more than they could really understand how to deal with. And there's tours now going through Poston. They're trying to rebuild some of the last of the buildings that are there. So as I close this little session, I just want to remind people that if we don't pay attention to what's going on, we could all be in a situation like that. So I want to thank you.
So I'm tasked to talk to you guys about the Minidoka Swing Band and what we represent. Larry Nobori came up and he knew of this book that was written by George Yoshida, and it was about Japanese Americans in jazz before 1960, which you would think it's a pretty thin book, but actually there's some stuff in here. There's a whole section on bands that were set up in the different camps during World War II. Oftentimes, there are 10 permanent camps, and the permanent camps were Tule Lake, Minidoka, Heart Mountain, Topaz in Utah, Manzanar, Poston, Gila River, Granada, Rower, and Jerome. Those are in Arkansas. But there's also many other camps in here, like there's Crystal City down here in Texas. And at the beginning of the war, a lot of the people were arrested by the FBI, the community leaders, the ministers of both the Christian churches and the Buddhist churches, because they wanted to take the community, take their leadership away so the people would be easier to manage. And so I know a reverend that was up in Seattle, he ended up in Crystal City down here. But all the camps, they had young people, and the young people were American citizens. And so, you get people together, they want entertainment, they want to do something, and they loved music. And oftentimes they would form bands. And in fact, I guess out of the 10 camps, 9 of them had big bands in it at one time or another. But I will stress just the ones that has to do with Minidoka. Up here in Seattle, there was a Japanese-American group. They were the Nisei Boys. And they had a group that was called the Mikados of Swing. And they actually they were pretty good, I hear. And they took a tour in the summer of 1941 down through Oregon and through California down to LA. And they played at many places along the ways. So they were really up and pumped. And then World War II happened. And so what happened is almost en masse, they were sent to Puyallup, which is the fairgrounds there in Puyallup. That was the assembly center for the people in the Seattle area. And so that camp, the Japanese, they called it Camp Harmony. And the band decided, Mikados of Swing is not politically very correct. So they changed their name to the Harmonaires. And they used to play on Saturday nights for dances for the young people there. So to make a good situation out of a bad situation, at least there was some entertainment in that form. And then after the permanent camps were ready, they were moved from Puyallup down to Minidoka. And so when they got to that camp, they tried to organize again, and they started to play. And they actually played to a couple of high schools in Twin Falls for their proms. They were taken there by armed guards, but they were able to play, I guess because there wasn't many bands out there in the middle of Idaho. There was a portion of time where they decided to sort the Japanese Americans. They gave out a loyalty questionnaire. And 2 of the questions asked whether they would fight for the United States, and they would disallow their allegiance to Japan and cut off all ties to Japan. And that kind of was a double-edged sword to the Japanese American community. The Issei, the first generation, were never allowed to become citizens of the United States. So if they disallowed the Emperor of Japan, would they be left with no citizenship? That they wouldn't be a citizen? And in the case of my family, they actually left daughters in Japan when they came to the United States. So they had very close ties. So it's a very hard thing to do. So they had people ask if they answered no to two of those questions on the questionnaire. Then they were sent to Tule Lake, which is this camp here. And the other camps, they were able to be less stringent. So there was martial law at Tule Lake for the rest of the war. In fact, it closed in March of 1946. But the other camps, this is the peak populations of the different camps. Minidoka was 9,300. Heart Mountain was 10,767. At that time, Minidoka was the 7th largest city in Idaho when they grow up there. So 8,000, 7,000, Poston 17,800. So that's what Lonnie was saying, that it was a pretty large camp down there. And Gila River was 13,000. So when they did the sorting, the people, Tule Lake swelled to 18,000. And the other camps, got smaller, and they started allowing the Japanese Americans to leave if they could get employment further away from the West Coast. So anyway, that's what happened to the Harmonaires. Some of the people got to leave the camp, and so the band kind of broke up early. But there's another group that played there, and they called themselves the Norakuro Band, and they were actually a harmonica band. And they had harmonica, piano, mandolin, whatever instrument a person could bring to camp, they had that in the camp. And the two people who started that band was called Roy and Henry Matsunaga. And so we could play the song now. There was a song that was written for our Minidoka band that was based on the band that Henry and Roy Matsunaga had set up. Richard March, a local musician, had written it because he spoke to the daughter of Henry Matsunaga and thought that the story was really interesting. And so this is the Minidoka Swing Band song. And by the way, that is Roy Matsunaga, and that's Henry Matsunaga.
I'm gonna tell you all a story. About a while ago, it happened way out in Idaho. A saxophone wailing to a swinging beat. It's the kind of music makes you move your feet. Henry and Roy are up on the stand. Dance to the Minidoka Swing Band.
1, 2, 3, 4.
In 1942, we were in a fix. The government issued Order 9066. We had to be gone from the West Coast shore. They smashed our windows and they looted our stores. We lost all our possessions and we lost our homes. Shipped us out to Minidoka where the buffalo roam. Saturday night neath the Idaho moon, the Matsunaga boys were wailing a tune. Out on the windy desert when they started to play, you'd hear the Minidoka Swing Band from miles away.
And that's the Mikados of Swing, the band from Seattle that was taken to Minidoka.
Out in Minidoka, all they got is two kinds of weather, too cold and too hot. Rain comes a-falling with the autumn breeze. You could wade in a mud hole up to your knees. Dust comes a-blowing through the barracks wall. In the winter you could freeze in a latrine stall. Those who say boys, American born, but they're swinging when you give them a horn. Put it to their lips and they begin to blow. It's Minidoka swing, hey, go man, go. They put it to their lips and they start to play. Hey, Minidoka swing band, hey, hey, hey. Saturday night, meet the Idaho moon. The boys in the band wail a jazzy tune. Out on that windy desert when they started to play, you'd hear the Minidoka swing band for miles away. Dance, give your sweetie a hug, and boy, could those knees say jitterbug. Try to be happy though they're treating you bad. Music and dance can make you feel glad. They may have you pinned up behind barbed wire, still the Minidoka swing band can light your fire. Saturday night, meet the Idaho moon. The boys in the band wail a jazz tune. Out on that windy desert when they started to play, you'd hear the Minidoka swing band for miles